worker can undermine the provision of healthcare, for instance, by reducing the propensity for a mother and the baby to receive assistance in public hospital. So, and you know, donors and NGOs have always believed that an increase of health expenditure and a good governance can refine the quality of health in developing country. So what I show that is, and they sometimes overlook the performance of health workers because it matters. That's what I show here. And how do I show it? I use first a principal agent model where I make some predictions, and afterward I test those predictions using data from Cameroon. So what motivates me in choosing this? Okay, what motivated me in choosing this topic? So as you see, this picture describes people protesting in a city, Douala, the second largest city in the country. In fact, they are accusing the medical body in the country to have health workers which are negligent and they lack incentives. So this event followed the death of a woman, a lady, a pregnant woman with the name Kumate Monique at the gate of the hospital. She was seeking for care, but she didn't receive me because, okay, what they say is that the health worker was negligent. They refused to assist her because she didn't have money or so. There are many reasons. So after this event, I started to figure out if actually the performance of health worker can affect health outcome, because it's difficult to measure first, and there are also some authors like Dupas and Miguel who always show that the return to health investment depend on quality governance. So according to her, the governance is what matters to explain the quality of health. Also, there are also other authors who show that the policy enacted by the country also is what matters to explain the quality of health. But after reading the paper of Federico Finan and some colleagues, where they show that the quality of public health care can also be undermined if the frontline workers are incentivized to neglect their duties. So, and also the paper by Design Host, which shows that health workers lack incentive can undermine the effectiveness of subsidized programs. So, for instance, a patient can face red tape, which I define like poor assistance of workers and absenteeism, which can worsen the patient's health. So, after this, I've made this research question. So, why might health workers lack incentive? What's the origin of health workers' negligence in Cameroon public hospitals? There is a paper of Kim Jong where they show that health workers care a great deal about patients, but they are discouraged about the system. So is it because of the system that the health worker lack incentive to fulfill their duty, or there are other reasons? So that's the first question. The second question is, okay, there is a low performance of health workers. So how it relates to the postnatal care and the antenatal care of mothers. So that's the second question. So I answer all these questions in the framework of Cameroon. So first I present the setting, the Cameroon setting. So since the 1980s, the Cameroon health system has undergone numerous policies reform, which are reducing the public's expenditure and ameliorating the effectiveness of public services. So the policies such as the cost recovery and the structural adjustment programs, and also the health system policy decentralization, was the policy put forward by the government in order to promote and to refine the health system in the country. But among all the policy enacted, the structural adjustment program was mostly targeted at the health worker. And it was about suspension of all promotions and advancement and also salary reduction. So my hypothesis is that though it's this policy that leads to disincentivizing health worker in the public. So it's what I show using this model based on paper by Banerjee. So first I consider three agents in the economy: the patients, the health worker, and the government. So I distinguish two types of patients who value the goods differently. There is a low-type patients and the high-type patients with each return. So the low-type patient has a return L, which is lower than the return of the high-type patient, which is H. And for instance, the high-type patient can be a pregnant woman in the hospital because she needs care more than the low-type. And also, I assume that the patients are cash constrained. For example, if I take the example of the lady who died in front at the gate of the hospital, the first reason was also because she was cash constrained and she couldn't afford the care. So the next hypothesis is that I define by omega bar the upper bound of the client ability to pay. So also the probability pi of patients to get the goods. So here the probability here captures the quality of emergency care in public hospital. So pi is the probability that a high type gets the goods. So if pi is low, it means that, for instance, it's difficult for a pregnant woman to have care in public hospital. So what I want to show is that how the red tape affect the probability of getting good for pregnant women. And another hypothesis is that, okay, the official agent is responsible for allocating the good. And the mechanism chosen by the official agent to allocate the good combines the price that is charged to the person and also the red tape that can be, for instance, lack incentive, or maybe when the patient shows up, the health worker is absent. So that's what I measure with RL. So that's the two. Also, the government is responsible for rewarding the health worker and care only about the social welfare. And there is a fine that the government charges to health worker who disregard the policy reform. So it's like here CAPA is like the policy reform. Let's take an example of the structural adjustment program that the government put in all hospitals in order to regulate the functioning of the hospital. So, and the CAPA will appear on the objective function of the health worker with a negative sign, saying that if the health worker disregard the public policy, it can affect negatively in its utility function. So here is the maximization problem. So here the first term, like, okay, NH is the fraction of high type patient, and LL is the fraction of low type. So, and PH is the price. So when the H type get the good, it comes to in the objective function of the health worker with a price PH. And now I assume also that the red tape can negatively affect the health worker in such a way. For instance, by being absent, the health worker can get caught, and also it can affect his job. So I assume that the health tape can slightly affect, but here I suppose that the cost is small. And also, here is the government policy. So here the government policy imposed to all work to health worker to allocate the good to take care of ITA patient, I mean pregnant women. So that's why this fine appear here with a negative sign, and saying that if this probability increase, that is 1 minus the probability the ITA get the goods. If it increase, it just means that the health worker allocates the good to low type instead of high type, like and the policy shows us that they allocate more to high type. So here are the constraints. The first, the incentive constraint for the high type patient. We say that the high type patient is is better off by claiming B of I type than by claiming B of L type. And also the individual rationality concern, which is the reservation utility here is 0 here. And okay, so here is the proposition from the model, but the intuition behind the proposition is that the government move and enact a tough regulation on the allocation of health products, and yes.
Isn't it that the incentive problem should apply to the worker as opposed to the patients? Because the
Yes.
patients clearly are two categories, either expensive or cheap.
Yes.
Or either very, very needy or less.
But
then the worker, we don't know whether they are committed or not.
But-
There is some uncertainty regarding
Yes.
that. So the term high tide, low tide here should apply to the worker. No?
the incentive of the worker is captured in this term.
Okay.
Like they have to allocate the good to I type more than low type, and if they don't, this probability will increase, and will have a negative sign on their objective function.
I see.
That's the maximization point of the health worker, and it maximizes subject to the patient who is incentivized and the individual rationality
So
concern.
high tide is the one that recognizes that pregnant women should get
Yes.
more attention than
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Okay.
So the policy recognizes that pregnant women should get more attention than the.
Okay.
Yes, that's a fine.
Okay.
And so I was saying, first the government move and enact a tough regulation on the allocation of health products. So this limits the earning of health workers. So as a result, there's a report of the World Bank which says that absenteeism in public hospitals in developing countries is mostly due to health physicians having, for instance, a second job or another facility. So here, for instance, if the policy limits the earning of health workers, they can move to their, for instance, second facility and be absent in the public hospital. So that's how the regulation affects the health worker, and it makes me in the proposition, it makes me having a red tape here which is positive. In the second now, where I assume that the ability to pay is low, like in developing countries, most patients are cash concerns. So when I assume here that the omega bar, which is the ability to pay for patient, is low, now in this case, the head tape increases and the probability for items to get the good decrease. This is because now the I-type patient cannot entirely reduce head tape, for instance, by handing money to the health worker, because the ability to pay is very, very low. So they cannot reduce head tape. That's why first the head tape increase, and and also the probability for them now to get the good decrease. So yes, Francis. Yes. Yes. Yes, the patient, yes. The two is the two last is the individual rationality. Like the health worker maximize such that the individual rationality concept of each type is satisfies. Patient, yes. Yes, for the worker, yes.
I think we need to switch the terminology, but we
But-
can talk about it. Let's talk about
Let's
it.
finish and then we go back to the question.
Okay. So now, following the proposition, here are my two predictions from the model. So the public health worker absenteeism reduces the women and infants healthcare use, and absenteeism also negatively affects the satisfaction of consumers in the public hospital. So now, to illustrate the prediction, now I make use of two data sets: the DHA data set in 2011 and the Afrobarometer in 2013. which the affirmative contains the information about workers' absenteeism, and the DHS contains information about postnatal care, satisfaction with government hospital, and mortality rate. So this picture just give so in the left-hand side, you have the worker absenteeism. When the locality, for instance, is darker, it means that there is high absenteeism in the locality. And in the right-hand side is the postnatal care. When locality is darker, it means that there is low postnatal care seeking for women. So we see how the picture are almost the same. Meaning that in locality with high absenteeism are the locality with low postnatal care seeking. So now that's the model I use. My variable of interest is the absence. And now here I hide the interaction term because the wealth can, for instance, if a woman is rich, for instance, and she faces absenteeism in public hospital, she has the ability to switch the hospital and be less affected than, for instance, a poor woman. So the worker absenteeism affect women according to the living condition level. That's why I include the interaction term with absence and poor. Also, I also have a locality fixed effect, which is XI, which capture the characteristic in each locality. And the variable absence is defined in each locality. So what I did is that from AfroBarometer, I have information about the worker absenteeism. So now I can take this information and compute it at the locality level, and now include it in the DHS data to make the regression. Here is the marginal effect for instance, when the dependent variable is a dummy. Here's how they compute the marginal effect. So the main finding, high absenteeism significantly reduces the probability of postnatal check by 60.4%. And also one standard deviation increase in the absenteeism, and I show in the, here there is no table, increase the mortality rate by 0.65. So also I find zero effect of absenteeism on the number of antenatal visits. For instance, it can be assumed, for instance, by the fact that women, for instance, can opt for self-medication when they are pregnant. And after, when they deliver, they can go now to the hospital. So that's maybe one reason why I found zero effect on the antenatal visit. And I've also found that absenteeism has a negative and strongly significant effect on the probability of seeking antenatal care and in government hospital. And yes. So I also performed some empirical study to identify the causality. The first, the one I performed is the endogenous selection. For instance, I have a sample space restricted only on women who had at least one childbirth within the 6 months prior to the interview, or women who have record with public hospitals. It means that if a woman doesn't have a record about on public hospital, we don't have information about her postnatal care. So this leads to incidental truncation. So now to solve it now, I use the Eggman method. And the variable that I use so that it affects the selection equation is age. Because I believe that age affects the decision of women to seek for postnatal care. For instance, older women with experience older women with experience, older women are less willing to give birth than younger. So that's why I say age, for instance, affects the decision, for instance, to give birth, also to seek for postnatal care. And I found also a weak and not significant correlation between the two aorta, meaning that the problem of androgen selection is not really a problem. The second empirical strategy that I perform is the IV instrumental variable. So each time when we define the instrumental variable, people are going to ask you, why do you believe that the instrument is a valid one? So the first is that it's hard to believe that in a locality Okay, the estimate that I use first is, the first estimate is ethno-linguistic fractionalization, followed by Maro 1995, where he used the same instrument to, when he was analyzing the effect of malfunctioning governments, institutional or private investment. So why is it it's a valid one? Because first, it's hard to believe that in a locality which is fractionalized ethnically, the health state of someone can worsen because the locality is fractionalized. It's difficult, it's hard to believe that. But if, for instance, if now the fractionalization affects, for instance, the decision for worker or the performance of worker, now in this case can affect now the health outcome. And there are some findings that make me believe that it's a value. For instance, the work with Wachekon and Wellman, a literature survey, where they show that politicians that attach high value in ethnic identity. So in ethnic, in a fractionalized ethnic, so politicians high value in ethnic identity, we prioritize resource allocation that benefit her fellow. So think of, for instance, someone which is marginalized in the locality. Now it will be difficult for that health worker will be difficult to perform her duty. The second paper is Miguel and Gaetan, where they show that in ethnically diverse community, the enforcement of social sanction is compromised. And we know how we know the role social sanction play in overcoming free rider problem. So in an ethnically diverse community, absenteeism level is expected to be high. And also the last point is paper by Stevenson and Scotter, where they show that participation in community groups in monitoring and motivating health workers, holding them accountable for the performance as reduced child mortality and increased child weight. So in community where there is less fractionalization, it reduces child mortality and increased child weight. So in ethnically fractionalized ethnic, I argue that the health worker will perform, yes. And that's the result from the, so I find the similar to the result similar to the baseline estimation when I perform the IV estimate with a first stage which is totally significant. So this is the conclusion. So I showed in a theoretical model that because of preference misalignment between the agent and the principal, we may reach a non-optimal equilibrium, which in turn adversely affects the consumer's health. So an empirical result confirmed that the health workers' incentives matter in explaining the health levels in developing countries. So that's why I want to say thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Gaetan.
Right now, let me just do something about it. I'm pretty sure that coming to this, you have no intrinsic interest in health economics.
Yes.
But then you say, okay, I have to do it because I need to figure out why this happens and what can be done about it. I think this is a great lesson for all of us, not only students, but also faculty, being inspired by real events. So now, as I mentioned to you earlier, I think that you have to remove the term type when you are referring to patients, because there is no uncertainty about whose high type is and who low type is. It's a matter of semantics. You know, I think your uncertainty is regarding the health workers, their incentives.
Yes.
And then we are facing like two categories of patients. One is high cost, the other one low cost. So anyway, we can talk about how you can, yes. But I think it's not going to affect the result and so on.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I realized that the measurements of absenteeism is based on Afrobarometer. So is it an extrapolation to the health worker? Because I mean, the data is not about health workers, right?
No, it's not. But there's a question who asks about the perception,
yes,
of the citizen about the health worker in their locality.
Exactly.
So that's why that I use.
Okay. Can you? I mean, I don't know. I hope in the thesis you explain why this extrapolation makes sense.
Yes. So you mean the fact that I use a data?
No. The fact that you're using Afrobarometer measurement of absenteeism.
Okay, yes.
To infer the absenteeism of health workers.
Okay, yes.
I mean, it's a bit of a stretch, but you know, I think you might need some.
Some explanations.
Yes. Another questions or remarks? Yes, back there.
Well done for your presentation.
Thank you.
But please, can I look at your topic?
Yes, that's
The public service management and analysis of maternal and infant healthcare. I'm looking at some of the top areas that you were talking about. What's more of child health than the maternal?
I don't
Come again. I'm saying that some of the slides, most of the slides you presented,
Yes.
look more of the infant care than the maternal. In this instance, were you concentrating, you said analysis of maternal
Yes.
and the infant.
Yes, it's maternal, like there's the Bible about antenatal care. Antenatal care is when the woman is pregnant.
Yes, I know that, but I wanted to find out, you have the scientific qualitative analysis. Then you come in with the analysis of the empirical area also, so that maybe it will add to the richness.
Okay, so when to add like empirical
Yes,
analysis.
some things that can add to your.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
You have more topics in your master thesis. Okay. So now it's my pleasure to welcome you here, Gaetan, quoting.
Monsieur Gaëtan, vous allez bien, monsieur?
C'est bon.
Alors, bonjour monsieur Gaëtan.
Bonjour,
Présentez-vous, s'il vous plaît.
je m'appelle Gaetan NANDONG, je viens du Cameroun et je suis prédoctoral fellow à l'African School of Economics.
Vous venez de présenter un exposé.
Oui.
Donnez-nous le titre de l'exposé et faites une synthèse de cet exposé.
Le titre de l'exposé, c'est... En fait, j'analyse la gestion des services publics et comment ça se transmet sur la qualité de la santé de la femme et de l'enfant. Donc, en réalité, beaucoup des investisseurs, les donneurs, mettent beaucoup l'attention sur la qualité de la gouvernance, les politiques émises par les gouvernements pour expliquer la qualité de la santé dans les pays. Donc, ils donnent moins d'attention sur la performance de l'agent de la santé. C'est-à-dire l'agent de la santé qui est en interaction directe avec le patient. Sa performance est importante pour que tous leurs projets qui conduisent au niveau étatique là aient son effet. Donc, ce que je montre, c'est que si l'agent de la santé est moins motivé et il est négligent, ça va affecter négativement la santé des patients. Donc c'est ça que
Et qu'est-ce que vous voulez corriger alors?
je veux montrer aux participants que
Quel apport?
l'apport, oui, les participants que la performance est aussi importante. C'est vrai que c'est difficile à capturer. Pour moi, je montre une manière de capturer la performance, donc de mesurer la performance dans la santé. Et je montre aussi que c'est important, puisqu'on a souvent vu que c'est négligent, puisque tout le monde sait que les services publics sont souvent paresseux. Tout le monde sait ça. Mais on se dit que bon, ça ne peut pas avoir un effet sur le plan national. Donc je montre donc que ça peut bien avoir un effet sur le plan national et on peut bien mesurer ça. C'est ça. Et on peut maintenant corriger ça avec les politiques publiques et tout et tout. Donc voilà mon apport.
Vous pensez que le public peut être plus performant?
Oui. Si les politiques qu'on émet vont en accord avec les préférences des gens de la santé.
Vous n'avez pas pensé à un partenariat public-privé qui pourrait renforcer le domaine?
Non.
Ok.
Non, Non, je pas.
Un mot de fin sur la SIER.
Ah, ok. Bon, l'African Soul Economy, c'est une bonne initiative et je pense que d'ici quelques années, on verra les fruits de cette initiative de M. Yonawachenko.
Vous serez le prochain docteur ou parmi les prochains docteurs?
Hopefully, effectivement. Donc, c'est ce qu'on espère.
Ah, ok.
Ouais.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci.